You know, using a generic AI prompt it's kind of like going on a really bad blind date.
Oh, absolutely. The worst kind.
Right. Like there is a massive amount of talking happening. Words are definitely being exchanged across the table, but there is absolutely zero actual connection.
None at all. Just two entities taking turns making noise.
Exactly. You sit there, you give it a basic prompt like, write me an email, and the AI just starts rambling. It has no idea who you actually are, what you care about, or what you're trying to achieve.
It's just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. And today, we're fixing that dynamic. We are unpacking a really fascinating masterclass on AI workflows. It's drawn from a course excerpt titled Lesson 3, How to Find Your Market and Clients.
It's a great lesson.
It really is. Our mission today is to show you exactly how to build a proper, structured AI workspace, one that takes scattered, messy client data and transforms it into highly customized, incredibly effective workflows.
And it is such a critical transformation, because that blind date dynamic you mentioned, that is the exact trap almost everyone falls into when they first integrate AI into their work.
They treat it like a magic 8-ball or something.
Right, like a magical vending machine. You put a one-sentence request in, and you expect a perfect, nuanced strategy to just pop out.
Which never happens.
Never. But the central thesis of the lesson we're diving into today establishes a very different reality. Good AI output begins entirely with real client context.
Real context, not just broad strokes.
Right. We are going to break down how to take one highly specific buyer, deeply analyze their situation, and turn that into a reusable AI architecture. An architecture that basically governs every future message and interaction you have with them.
So we're saying a generic prompt fails because it lacks constraints. Let's actually dig into the mechanics of why that happens. Because, I know it is incredibly tempting to just open up a chat window, type, write an introductory email to a home buyer, and just hit enter.
Oh, for sure. It takes 5 seconds.
Right. And isn't the whole promise of AI supposed to be speed and efficiency? Why are we taking the long way around here?
Well, because saving 5 seconds on the input side often costs you hours on the output side. Not to mention, the cost to your professional reputation if you send garbage.
Yeah, nobody wants to sound like a robot.
Exactly. Let's look at this mechanically for a second. Large language models operate on probability. When you feed an AI a prompt, it applies mathematical weight to the words.
The tokens.
Right, the tokens you provided. It uses those to predict the most likely next sequence of words. So if you just say, write an email to a home buyer, the AI's attention is scattered across millions of generic real estate parameters from its training data.
It has too many options.
Way too many. So it defaults to the absolute most average, middle-of-the-road response possible. It's going to spit out a message that basically says, hello, I am a real estate agent. I can help you buy a home. Real estate is a big transaction.
It's the robot trying to act human. Hello, fellow human. I enjoy shelter.
Yes. And that doesn't build any trust because it doesn't solve any specific problem.
No, it just proves you know how to copy and paste.
Precisely. The AI needs strict parameters to narrow its probability field. A generic message fails because it doesn't reflect the budget, the urgency, the motivation, or the unique friction points that actually shape a real human's decision-making process.
So you had to rein it in.
You do. The lesson lays out that a genuinely useful AI workflow has to start with 3 non-negotiable anchors before you type a single instruction. You need a clear client profile, a defined service area, and a realistic next step.
Okay, so if you take the time to build that context up front, the AI stops being a generic text generator.
Right. It starts functioning as an actual strategic partner.
I love that. So instead of asking the AI to do a task, you are asking the AI to assist this specific person.
Exactly the right mindset.
But what do those constraints actually look like in practice? Because the lesson gives us this great illustration using 2 clients operating in the exact same market, Austin, Texas.
Yes, the Austin example is perfect.
And right out of the gate, the source makes a really crucial distinction. An area does not define a client. Austin is just a geographic boundary. It's not a persona.
Right, and this is where the shift from demographic targeting to psychological targeting happens. Geography is a useful data point, sure, but immediate need and limitation are what actually drive a transaction.
So let's look at the first client profile we're given here. Her name is Sarah Johnson.
Okay, Sarah.
Sarah is a buyer. She's looking for a 3-bedroom home. Her budget is hard capped between $450,000 and $500,000.
That's a strict parameter.
Very. And her timeline is highly compressed. She needs to move within 90 days. The motivation driving all this is that her growing family desperately needs more space.
Okay, so he have the why.
Right. And from the agent's perspective, the realistic next step isn't selling her a house today, it's just getting her to agree to a 15-minute discovery call.
That is a highly constrained, beautiful profile. We have financial limits, temporal limits, and a specific psychological driver.
It's very specific. But then we have the second profile the course gives us, Michael Thompson.
Ah, yes, Michael.
Michael is a potential seller. He already owns a home in Austin, but he's facing a potential corporate relocation within 30 days.
Talk about compressed.
Right. So his next useful step is completely different from Sarah's. For Michael, the agent's goal is simply to offer a property valuation conversation.
And setting up this contrast between Sarah and Michael is vital for understanding AI architecture. A core rule established here is that an AI workspace must begin with one clear client type.
Wait, really? I mean, if they were both Austin real estate clients, wouldn't dumping them into one master Austin real estate assistant seem like way more efficient?
It seems that way, but it's a trap.
Why silo them? Why not feed the AI both Sarah and Michael's data so it can just handle any lead that comes in from Austin?
Because of how an LLM's attention mechanism functions, which we touched on a minute ago, if you load a single workspace with contradictory goals, Sarah's need to analyze neighborhood inventory versus Michael's need to stage a home for a fast exit, the AI's context window becomes diluted.
It gets confused.
Exactly. It struggles to apply the correct mathematical weight to your subsequent prompts. If you ask this master assistant to draft a follow-up, it might accidentally blend the contexts.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it might suggest property valuation strategies to Sarah or start sending buyer listings to Michael. By mixing the profiles, you dilute the context, and the AI just regresses right back to being generic to cover its bases.
That makes total sense. You're forcing the model to average out the specific details.
Which is exactly what we want to avoid.
So to keep the mathematical weights focused and the output high quality, we isolate. For the rest of this deep dive, we're just going to throw out Michael's profile entirely.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's on his own. We're going to focus entirely on Sarah. We are building an architecture specifically for the Austin family buyer with a 90-day timeline.
Perfect.
We have the data, but how do we practically introduce her to the AI? Because the lesson outlines a very specific, deliberate setup here, and it does not involve just opening ChatGPT and pasting her bio into the text box.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It utilizes Claude.
Right. We are moving into the structural build phase. The framework designates Claude as the thinking assistant, and you don't just start a normal chat. You create what is specifically called a Claude project, dedicated just to client strategy.
I want to highlight the significance of a project in Claude for a second, because this isn't just like a UI feature to keep your sidebar organized, right?
No, not at all. It represents a fundamental shift in how the LLM processes your instructions. A project in Claude creates a persistent, contained environment.
Meaning it remembers the rules.
Yes. It utilizes a system-level prompt that sits above all your individual chat queries. You start by setting the project instructions. You're essentially programming Claude's baseline persona.
Okay.
You define its role as a real estate strategy assistant, you establish its analytical tone, and you set strict boundaries on what it is and isn't allowed to do.
So instead of treating the AI like a search engine where every new query is a blank slate, you're building a persistent digital room.
That's a great way to think about it.
It's kind of like onboarding a human assistant. I mean, you wouldn't hire someone, point them to a desk, and just yell, "Help Sarah," across the room.
I hope not.
Right. You'd hand them a dossier. You'd say, "Your role is strategy. Here is Sarah's background, and here are the operational parameters we work within."
That is precisely the mechanism.
Yeah.
You are loading the context window up front. So once those system instructions are locked in, you take Sarah's starting background, the $450 K budget, the 90-day deadline, the Austin parameter, and you upload it directly into the project's knowledge base as a text document.
Okay, so it's safely stored in there.
Yep. Claude now holds this context persistently.
And what is the actual output we are looking for from this newly minted reasoning engine? Like, what's the goal?
So you prompt Claude to analyze Sarah's profile and generate a market and ideal client brief.
Okay, a brief.
Yes. And this is the foundational asset of the entire workflow. Claude uses its reasoning capabilities to synthesize Sarah's constraints. But the real value here isn't just having the AI parrot back the budget and timeline to you.
Right. Anyone could do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A truly effective brief identifies the known constraints, but crucially, it performs a gap analysis.
A gap analysis.
Yeah. It identifies the critical questions you still need to ask the client.
Oh, wow. It finds the blind spots.
Exactly. Claude's analysis might return something like, okay, we know she needs a three-bedroom in Austin within 90 days, but we lack data on her non-negotiable school district preferences, her acceptable commute radius, and her financing status.
That's incredibly helpful.
It structures your future human-to-human conversation so you don't go in blind.
There is a massive pitfall here, though, right? I mean, LLMs are notorious for trying to be overly helpful.
Very true.
So what happens when Claude looks at Sarah's profile and decides to just, fill in those blanks itself? Like, it might hallucinate that because she's a family buyer in Austin, she obviously wants to be in the Neens Independent School District. Or it assumes she wants a pool because of the Texas heat.
And this is exactly why the framework mandates a human-in-the-loop protocol right at this juncture.
You have to step in.
You cannot blindly export that brief. The AI is a tool for synthesis and probability. It's not telepathy. The instructions from the source dictate a line-by-line review. You must actively strip out any hallucinations or assumptions the AI generated.
You prune the false paths.
Yes. If Claude states a preference Sarah never actually articulated, you delete it immediately.
You are enforcing reality.
That's a perfect way to put it. Once you, the human expert, have verified the brief, pruned the assumptions, and finalized that gap analysis, you save it.
And then what?
Well, that document is no longer just a chat output. It becomes a verified, reusable strategy asset. It's the master blueprint that will govern your CRM fields, your lead forms, and your entire communication strategy.
Okay, which brings us to the actual communication. Claude has done the back office heavy lifting. It mapped the strategy, it found the gaps, and it built the master brief.
The thinking is done.
But a strategy brief is just an internal document. We still need to actually reach out to Sarah. And here, the workflow makes a really fascinating structural pivot.
It does.
We transition from Claude to a completely different platform. We move to ChatGPT.
Right. We shift from the thinking phase to the communication phase. The framework instructs us to create a ChatGPT project named Real Estate Client Communications.
Okay.
And then you take that finalized, verified market and ideal client brief that Claude just built, and you upload it as the foundational source document into this new ChatGPT project.
Now, I get using Claude as the reasoning engine for the brief. Its architecture is incredibly strong for parsing documents and synthesizing logic. But why jump to ChatGPT for the output?
It's a great question.
Is it strictly about OpenAI's tone generation? Or is there a structural advantage to isolating the thinking context from the speaking context?
It is fundamentally about structural isolation. This actually mimics an advanced engineering technique called prompt chaining. By separating the platforms, you establish a front office and a back office.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, Claude is your back office strategist. Its context window is filled with raw data, gap analysis instructions, and frankly, critical evaluations of what you don't know.
All the messy behind-the-scenes stuff.
Exactly. If you ask Claude to write the email directly from that same workspace, there's a very high probability that its analytical internal tone bleeds into the client-facing output.
Oh man, I might sound way too clinical. Or awkwardly list out all the missing data points.
Precisely. It might literally say, "Dear Sarah, my analysis indicates a gap in our knowledge regarding your commute preferences."
Which sounds terrible. You'd never send that.
Never. ChatGPT, in this framework, acts as the front office copywriter. Its specific project environment is designed solely to house-related communication threads and maintain a consistent, warm, client-facing tone.
And it doesn't have all the baggage from the planning phase.
Yeah. By uploading only the finalized brief as its source document, ChatGPT is completely unburdened by the messy analytical background work.
It's an assembly line.
Exactly.
The raw materials go into Claude, the refined strategy comes out, you hand that refined strategy to ChatGPT, and it manufactures the final product.
That's the exact workflow.
So we prompt ChatGPT, using the brief as context, to draft Sarah's first message. And because it has those strict parameters, the output is hyper-targeted. It references her specific Austin parameters, it respectfully acknowledges the $450,000 to $500,000 budget, and it naturally guides the narrative toward that 15-minute discovery call.
It creates a high-conversion message. And it works because the empathy is built on accurate context, not generic platitudes.
It sounds flawless. I mean, we've defined the constraints, built the reasoning engine in Claude, built the execution engine in ChatGPT, and generated a highly personalized email. The assembly line worked. We just hit send, right?
Not so fast. This is where the framework installs a massive, non-negotiable speed bump.
A speed bump?
A reality check. Because real estate conversations, or really any high-level consulting conversations do not stay in the realm of friendly introductions for long. They inevitably cross over into high-stakes live data.
Ah, right. Sarah's going to reply and ask about current active listings in a specific zip code, or recent price changes, or what the local property taxes look like for a $500,000 home in Travis County.
And this is exactly where LLMs fundamentally fail.
Yeah.
We have to remember that large language models are predictive text engines. They are not deterministic calculators.
They don't know what's happening right this second?
Exactly. They do not possess a live, verifiable connection to the municipal tax assessor's office or the real-time MLS database. When you ask an AI for a hyper-local tax rate, it isn't looking up a fact. It is guessing based on the mathematical probability of words in its historical training data.
Wow. So it might tell you the taxes are $6,000 a year based on data from, like, 2021, completely unaware that the city council passed a massive new levy 3 weeks ago.
Precisely. Which is why the workflow mandates adding a verified facts checklist section directly into your process.
Okay, a checklist.
Yes. While the AI is brilliant at structuring the communication and organizing the flow of the conversation, the human agent is strictly required to manually verify current market facts before ever transmitting them to the client.
I can hear people groaning at this step.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, if the AI drafts the perfect email, but I still have to stop my workflow, log into the local database, look up the property taxes, verify the school district zoning, and calculate the financing rates manually, haven't we just defeated the entire purpose of automation? Why have an AI assistant if I'm still doing all the high-stakes heavy lifting?
Well, it only feels like a defeat if you misunderstand the fundamental value proposition of AI in professional services. The AI's role is not the final execution of legal, financial, or market truth.
Okay, then what is it?
The AI's role is cognitive offloading and structural preparation.
Cognitive offloading. Expand on that.
Think about the immense mental friction involved in simply starting a task. Staring at a blank screen, trying to figure out how to structure an email to a brand new lead, remembering to carefully weave in their timeline, figuring out the most tactful way to address their budget cap, and formulating a smooth transition into a call to action.
It's exhausting. That takes significant cognitive energy.
It does. And the AI handles 100% of that structural preparation in milliseconds. It organizes the workflow, it sets the tone, it tees up the conversation flawlessly.
It gets you to the starting line.
Right. By offloading the preparation, the AI preserves your mental energy for the one critical task it cannot perform: verifying the truth.
It isolates your role to purely being the expert.
Yes. It doesn't replace the human agent, it elevates them.
Right. You aren't letting a predictive text bot run your business on autopilot. You are utilizing the bot to clear away all the structural noise so that you, the highly trained professional, can step in at the exact right moment to apply verified, high-stakes facts.
It is a totally symbiotic system. The machine handles the probability of language and structure. The human handles the absolute certainty of facts and relationship building.
That makes a lot of sense. And as the lesson notes, there is a critical privacy parameter here too, right?
Very much so.
If you are building this architecture just to practice, if you're setting up these Claude and ChatGPT projects right now to test the workflow, you must only use anonymized or fictional data, like our example of Sarah Johnson. You do not dump live, sensitive client financial records into commercial LLMs while you are learning the ropes.
Absolutely not. Data hygiene and privacy compliance are just as important as the prompt architecture itself.
Completely. So let's look at the complete architecture we've just built. We completely avoided the trap of the generic bad blind date prompt. We didn't just ask an AI to write an email.
Right. We build constraints.
We understood that mixing profiles dilutes the context window, so we isolated our focus entirely on Sarah, the specific Austin buyer with strict constraints.
We established our back-office reasoning engine using a Claude project, utilizing system prompts to ensure a persistent analytical environment.
And we fed it Sarah's data, generated a market and ideal client brief, and performed a vital gap analysis to find out what we still needed to learn.
Then we acted as the human in the loop, pruning away the AI's hallucinations to create a verified strategy asset.
Then we shifted to our front office execution engine. We created a separate ChatGPT project to isolate our client-facing communication. We used our verified brief as the source document to generate a highly targeted, empathetic message.
And finally, we installed the verified facts checklist, ensuring we leverage the AI for structural preparation while maintaining human authority over high-stakes market reality.
It's a really solid workflow, and all of this preparation is the necessary groundwork for the next phase. The lesson indicates that this perfectly sets up the actual journey mapping, moving the client from inquiry to needs analysis to the property search to the offer.
But you can't map that journey until you have built the brain and the voice to guide them through it.
Exactly.
And it is worth noting that while this specific architecture utilizes a real estate framework, the Meccano principles are universally applicable. If you are in B2B SaaS sales, legal consulting, graphic design, or wealth management, the rule of LLM context remains identical.
It's all the same underlying math.
It is. You can only leverage AI to automate a workflow once you deeply, systematically define the constraints of the client. Without your version of Sarah, you are just generating generic noise.
You're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping someone likes Italian.
Exactly.
But, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that really crystallizes what we've unpacked today. We spent a lot of time talking about the gap analysis in Claude, how generating that client brief automatically reveals the critical questions we haven't asked yet.
The unknowns, the commute times, the school districts, the underlying motivations.
Right. It forces you to look at the negative space in your data.
It really does.
So we spend so much time obsessed with what AI can write for us, right?
Sure.
The content it can push out into the world.
Oh yeah, output is everyone's focus.
But if an LLM is capable of analyzing the data we do have and instantly highlighting the vital human context we failed to gather, right, could it be that the true untapped superpower of artificial intelligence isn't its ability to speak on our behalf? Could the real superpower actually be its capacity to expose the blind spots in our own human listening?
That is a profound way to look at the technology, using the machine's logic not to replace our voice, but to show us exactly where our empathy is failing.
It's something to keep in mind the next time you open a blank prompt window. Ask yourself, is the AI just writing your emails, or is it teaching you how to ask better questions?
I love that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. I'll catch you on the next one.